Steve here. It's the show where I answer your questions, and this week the first question comes from Knight6831, who asks, which comic book superheroes would you like to see in a Screw Attack Death Battle episode? No doubt in my mind, the superheroes I would like to see in a Screw Attack Death Battle episode would be Jaina and Zan, the Wonder Twins. Form of an ice sculpture of a broken family. That was for you, Kievar. Next question from Aron Reynolds, who says, hi, Steve. I've been trying to read the Founding Fathers for myself. People seem to be able to use them regardless of what side of an argument they are on. I honestly don't know if it matters what they thought 250 years ago, but a lot of people do, so I'm trying. I started with Paine's Common Sense because I had heard he was one of the strongest on separation of church and state and religious freedom. By my reading, unfortunately, it appears he was only interested in religious freedom amongst the various Christian sects and denominations. Have you read Common Sense? And did you come to a different conclusion? Yeah, I have read Common Sense. It's been a very long time since I read it, though. Actually, in the background here behind me, that's a Thomas Paine book. I don't know, I think the top of it is cropped out in the shot that I have, but that's a collection of Thomas Paine's collected writings, and Common Sense is in that volume. But it's been a long time since I read it. I remember Paine saying something in Common Sense about the government's only legitimate role relative to religion was to protect those who protested it. So that to me sounds like a pretty pluralistic attitude in terms of separation of church and state and religious freedom. I don't remember anything from Common Sense that suggested that Paine was specifically interested in just Christian denominations and didn't have any concern for religious freedom for Jews or Muslims or whatever. In fact, in The Age of Reason, which is my favorite work by Paine, he specifically mentions that he considers the Christian and the Jewish and the Islamic, or what he called the Turkish church, to all be equal. He considers them all to be equally false. He thinks they're all equally invented. So that suggests that he was aware and conscious of non-Christian religions and regarded them all equally, as equally false, but also presumably as equally deserving of fair treatment under the law. As I said, it's been a long time since I read Common Sense. You have read it more recently than I have, so if there's a specific passage in there where it suggests that Paine is only concerned with Christians when it comes to religious freedom, feel free to correct me on that. But from what I remember and from what I know of Paine's other writings, he certainly didn't seem like the type of person to privilege Christians above other believers. I don't think Paine was an atheist, and I don't think he was a huge fan of atheism. He believed that there was a God, and he believed that it was foolish to not believe in God. But in terms of equality among religious believers, I think Paine probably had a fairly pluralistic attitude. But again, it's been a while since I read Common Sense, so I am open to correction on that. Here's one from Conference Report. Steve, when people talk about belief in God, attention is usually focused on the word God. What does it mean? Does such a thing exist? Is there only one of them? Is it a boy or a girl? Personally, I find the word belief equally, if not more, interesting. What do you think? What does believe mean for you? Is your belief in a scientific concept different from your belief in the trustworthiness of a friend, etc., etc.? Well, I suppose it's not. Now that I think about it, if my belief in the validity of a scientific concept is based on me being convinced that that concept is real and that concept is true, that concept represents reality, then I suppose my belief in the trustworthiness of a friend would be the same sort of thing. It would be based on evidence. My friend would have proven themselves in the past to be worthy of my trust, and that past experience would be the evidence that I use to base my trust on them now. So I guess you're right. I guess belief is the feeling or the knowledge or the state of being convinced that a given concept, a given premise is true. If I believe that this table that I'm sitting on now will bear my weight, then what is going on in my head is I have been convinced that the premise, the table will hold my weight, is true. If I believe that there is a God, let's hypothetically, then I am saying the premise, God exists, is true. I have been convinced of that. If the premise is my friend Jason is a trustworthy person, then my belief means that I have been convinced that that premise is true. Matt Helmers. Hey Steve, I had something of an existential crisis earlier this week. It was precipitated by a story on the Young Turks. The hosts were referring to a recent study that showed that people involved in BDSM tend to have a better grasp on the concept of consent. In light of this study, the hosts were debating the merits of teaching BDSM in high school sex ed. The hosts were of the mind that this was a good idea. I commented that this was clearly a horrible idea. I was met with what I felt to be belligerence. It seemed they were doing the same thing the alt-right does. They were listening to the gurus to inform their opinion, then without actually thinking about the topic, they attacked and belittled anybody who disagreed. My question to you is, do you believe there are any guiding principles that we progressives are progressing towards, or is it progress for progress' sake? If so, are there any lines that we shouldn't cross? Do you think there is any truth to my feeling that sometimes we are just fighting to win? And if so, what does reconciliation of both sides look like? Are progressives progressing towards something? I think so. Ideally we are. In principle we are. I would say, expressed in the most general terms, we are progressing or hoping to progress toward a society where the maximum number of people have the maximum amount of liberty. I've discussed it in the past as saying that it's sort of a balancing act between the public good and individual liberty. And as we make that progress, are there certain things we shouldn't do? Are there certain lines we shouldn't cross? Sure. I mean, I guess that, again, that would depend on the specific context that we're talking about. In the situation you describe in your question about whether or not we should teach BDSM in high school sex ed classes, to me, that hinges very much on, are we teaching BDSM to people, as in, are we recommending that they adopt this particular lifestyle? Or are we teaching it to them just so they know about it? Because if we're teaching it to them just so they're aware of it, just so they know, hey, this is a thing, this is a lifestyle that some people choose to adopt, and they enjoy it and they get a lot out of it, and if it's done responsibly and with consent, and safely, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't have a problem with that. But having said that, if you disagree with me and you don't think that it should be taught at all, like it shouldn't even be mentioned in a sex ed class, I would like to think that we can have a civil discussion about it. And if we disagree, we disagree, but we won't end up calling each other names or anything. But then again, I'm not a BDSM person. I don't feel like I have anything at stake. And whether or not students are taught BDSM stuff in sex ed classes, and whether or not BDSM communities and lifestyle choices are normalized and destigmatized in society. I mean, I can say in principle, I think that's a good thing. I would like to see that happen. But I don't have any personal experience or any personal ties to it. And if I did, I might react to your rejection of it, or your rejection of wanting to teach it, a lot more strongly than I do. Timothy Mastick. Hi Steve, yesterday a letter came out from the University of Chicago speaking out against the use of trigger warnings and safe spaces in a collegiate setting. This morning, Northwestern University released a letter supporting their use. The whole matter has caused me to rethink my positions on the issue, which is especially pertinent because I am currently teaching at the collegiate level. What are your thoughts on the issue? Are safe spaces and trigger warnings appropriate in a college setting? And can they be taken too far? Well, of course it can be taken too far. What I find interesting about this safe space trigger warning debate is how the two sides seem to be talking about completely different things. Because the things that people who are against trigger warnings and safe spaces seem to be arguing against are not the things that the people in favor of safe spaces and trigger warnings are recommending. They seem to be completely different. And as I understand it, and as I think every person I know who has spoken out on this issue in defense of safe spaces and trigger warnings, they are things that I absolutely support. And not only do I support them, but I don't see how a college campus that prides itself on open expression and giving its students as much freedom as they can within the collegiate environment could possibly be against. A trigger warning is also could also be called, and I think I would rather call it, a content warning or a content advisory. It's basically saying, heads up, we're going to talk about this. And because of the nature of this subject matter, some of you might find this difficult to deal with. So just heads up, prepare yourselves, because we're going to talk about this. So trigger warning is not, okay, we're not going to talk about this if it upsets you. A trigger warning is, we're definitely talking about this. So if it upsets you, be prepared. And if you need to take any special preparations, or if you need to come see me as the professor beforehand to talk about some things, let's do that. But here's the heads up front. We're going to talk about this. It might be upsetting, okay? Like, that's a trigger warning. That's a content advisory. What the objection is to that, I have no idea. I can't think of a single reasonable objection to that at all. And a safe space is a particular environment that is created to give people who are marginalized in some way or who are traumatized by some particular experience a place where they can go to just take a break. A safe space is just a place where if you want to go somewhere and just, take a break, that's where you can go, and you'll be around people like yourself. You won't have to deal with the pressures and the things that are causing you stress on the outside. You'll still have to go back eventually. You're not hiding from reality. You're not cutting yourself off from reality. You're not creating an echo chamber for yourself. You're just taking a break in a space that has been created with you and people like you in mind to give you a little bit of peace and quiet, a little bit of comfort, an ability to speak out, to have your voice heard in a context where it will be listened to. And again, I see no legitimate grounds to object to this. I am 1,000 apples. What are those records you got there in the back? These records? Well, let's see. All right. A few years ago, about several years ago now, my wife and I went through a vinyl record phase. It was short-lived because these are all the ones we have. It's a relatively short stack, but we did go through that phase. So let's see what we have. We have Born in the USA, Bruce Springsteen. We have 52nd Street, Billy Joel. The Stranger, Billy Joel. Piano Man, Billy Joel. These are mine, by the way, you can probably tell. This is MTV's Rock and Roll To Go, a collection that I believe I got because it has King of Pain by the Police on it. What else? Oh, this is a Sherlock Holmes story record starring Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce as Holmes and Watson. Very cool. This is Brahms' Hungarian Dances. This is the music of Frédéric Chopin. This is Rachmaninoff. This is music for the keyboard. It features pieces by Handel and Rachmaninoff. This is Ring of Fire, the best of Johnny Cash. This is another Rachmaninoff and the companion piece. It's a 2-volume Rachmaninoff set. This is the Rock album. I bet you've been looking for this, the Rock album. It features Electric Light Orchestra, Foreigner, come on now. Boston, Jethro Tull, Journey, Kansas, Toto, come on. Blue Oyster Cult. What else we got here? Jimi Hendrix, Smash Hits. Here's another Billy Joel one, An Innocent Man, good album. Ray Charles, one of the great albums of all time, Modern Sounds in Country and Western Music, a huge favorite of mine. Neil Diamond, Greatest Hits. I don't know, would anybody want to claim that one? Greatest Hits of Nat King Cole. 50 great moments in music, a lot of classical stuff. The Bobby Darin Story. One of my all-time favorite albums, one of the greatest albums ever, Bruce Springsteen, Darkness on the Edge of Town. The Best of Marlene Dietrich. Ray Charles' Greatest Hits. Oh, come on, another great all-time classic, Led Zeppelin 4. I forgot we had all of these, actually. Rockin' Little Christmas, Christmas music for playing during that time of the year. Perry Como, Christmas music. This is just a bare record. No Letter Day. Ooh, come on, God. Then we got some really nice stuff here, actually, for this tiny little collection. Abbey Road. How about that? Some more Rachmaninoff. Classic songs from World War I. How about that? And last but certainly not least, Edith Piaf. Those are what those records back there are. Thanks for asking. Carlisle the Cinephile. First of all, let me say thanks for the advice about getting my channel started. One of the topics I wanted to discuss in one of my videos is questioning why so many in nerd culture seem to oppose social justice and how we can improve as a community when that topic is concerned. I think you're right on the money. I think that a lot of it is that when we become fans of something, especially when we devote a lot of our time and a lot of thought to something and we really get deeply invested in a thing, we tend to feel like we have ownership of it. And when someone else also feels ownership of the thing that we love and is presenting a different view of it, or is critiquing it in a way that doesn't agree with our view of it and, you know, is sort of contradicting what we think of it, we can get very protective and very defensive, and we can start to view that critique or that different opinion as an attack on this thing that we love. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that all of the people who feel that way are, you know, blatant, diehard, to the bone, racists, sexists, whatever. It just means that they feel very, very strongly as though they have ownership of this thing, and they feel that the way they feel about it is the right way to feel about it. And anyone who feels differently about it or has some critical things to say about it is an attacker and is an enemy, or is an invader who's trying to change it or trying to ruin it. I think that was definitely something that we saw in many of the reactions to the new Ghostbusters movie. I saw something similar at a much lower level of rage when the reboot Star Trek movie came out. There were people who were like, "This isn't my Star Trek," and some people were really upset by it and seemed to take it really hard. You know, I can't believe they erased the old series. You know, the time travel plot in the Abrams Star Trek movie erased all of the old Star Trek. No, it didn't. It's still there. It's on Netflix. I have it on DVD. You can watch it whenever you want. It's still there. It's okay. But people felt like that was an attack on this thing that they loved. So yeah, I mean, I think it can definitely be understood as what you're saying it is. I think you're absolutely right. And yes, it's not an excuse. There's no excuse for, I mean, you can be angry about it if you want. I mean, you're entitled to feel however you feel, but there's no excuse for taking it out on other people. Joseph Fopiano, hey Steve, I'm trying to phase out of an ongoing, dragged out friendship with someone I've known since 8th grade, but I don't want to be a dick. He enrolled in my middle school halfway through the semester and was battling leukemia. I empathized with him, which he reciprocated as my father had recently passed away, and we remained close friends all throughout high school. His chemotherapy eventually put his cancer into ongoing remission, but at the cost of his mental health. The damage wasn't severe, but his social and mental faculties are such that he'll likely never live independently. We saw less of each other after I went away to college, but at this point I haven't seen him in months, and he keeps calling and asking to hang out. He even bribes me with promises I know will never materialize just to make it happen. I still empathize with him and wish him well in life, but especially now that I'm bound for Colorado within a year, our continued friendship would be painstaking, unfruitful, and unfeasible, and I genuinely wish for it to come to an end. Just thought you might have a paddle for me to navigate my way out of Shit Creek. Any suggestions? If not, thanks anyway. Oh man, are you asking the wrong guy? If I knew, I would tell you. If I knew of an elegant, dignified, humane way of sort of breaking off a friendship like that, I would tell you, I would share it with the world. The world would be a much better place if I had that knowledge to spread. But I don't. I am the type of person that if I was in a situation like you are in, and I have been in that situation before, my strategy is to just let it wither on the vine. To just sort of not take the phone calls, not respond to the texts, not reply to the emails, and just sort of let it, hope that the other person gradually just sort of loses interest, you know. That's my style, the apathetic / coward style. I'm just gonna sort of stop talking to them, and maybe they'll just get the message that I'm not really keen on hanging out with them anymore. I mean, the upside to that is it takes very little work on your part. You just have to stop doing things in relation to the person. The downside of it is that it can be a little cruel. To just sort of leave the other person hanging, to just sort of, you know, maintain radio silence until they stop trying to contact you. It's a really cruel way to handle it, especially if the other person really likes you and really wants to keep hanging out with you and wants to be your friend. So, I mean, there must be a better way to handle it, but I don't know what it is. It's a little melodramatic, but it nonetheless signifies that that is the end of this round of questions, and it's time for the next round, which is a little something I like to call
the lightning round.
Troubleshooter 125, lightning round question. Steve, M&M's, plain or peanut? Oh, peanut. Peanut every single time. Algie, how many questions have you answered in this series? Well, I actually did the math on this one before I started recording. I figured an average of between 15 and 20 questions per episode, and 204 episodes counting this one. It gives me between 3,000 and 4,000 questions that I have answered throughout this series. How about that? 3,000 to 4,000 questions. That's ridiculous. Kevin Logan, fuck, marry, kill, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. Fuck Spider-Man, marry Batman, kill Superman. The reason that you do it in that way, the linchpin, is the marry Batman, because you marry Batman, and that way when Batman dies, you get all that money, right? You don't want to fuck Superman because Superman will fucking kill you. So you kill Superman and you fuck Spider-Man. There you go. It's really the only way it works to me. Lucas Hackett, One Angry Brony. Hey, Steve, I figured I'd ask a soda-related question, so here I go. Which one of these do you think was the worst thing to happen to humanity? New Coke or Crystal Pepsi? New Coke. Actually, I kind of like Crystal Pepsi. Dangerously Talented. Why on earth would both Batman and Superman make Bruce Banner angry enough to Hulk out? Well, what happened was Batman and Superman were driving. Actually, Batman was driving and Superman was riding shotgun, and Bruce Banner was in the back seat. And Batman and Superman were fighting over where they were going to go to eat. And Batman wanted to go to Panera Bread, and Superman wanted to go to Chipotle. And Bruce Banner was just like, can't we just stop somewhere and get Chinese, please? I really would like some Chinese. And they weren't even listening to Bruce Banner. They just kept arguing back and forth, Panera Bread, Chipotle. And eventually Bruce just got tired of the argument and of not being listened to, so he hulked out and he just kind of smashed them both into goo. And then he went and got some Chinese food, and he didn't have to pay for it. Der Wunderbar Bar, a few lightning round questions. 1, have you ever tossed Yahtzee in one toss? I don't remember if I've ever even played Yahtzee. I think I had a computer version of Yahtzee a long time ago, and I had a Commodore 64. I may have tossed Yahtzee then, but I can't really remember. Number 2, did you pet a black cat on Black Cat Appreciation Day? No, but I did pet only the black portions of my black and white cat, so I think I deserve half credit for that. Number 3, if you did, was Audie jealous? No, she was not jealous that I was petting her. You can't be jealous of yourself. Number 4, I noticed that you have Cosmos on your bookshelf. How many times have you read it to date? Yeah, it's back behind me. It's right there, and there's another copy there, and there's another copy back there somewhere. I have read it straight through, cover to cover, maybe twice, I think. Can you wish me a happy belated birthday? I turned 44 on the 20th of August. Yes, absolutely. Happy birthday. Happy belated birthday. Sorry I didn't answer this question last week when I could have given you a less belated birthday greeting. Number 6, do you ever feel like going yar on Speak Like a Pirate Day? Nope. Number 7, should we promote Pastafarianism just for a joke? Ramen. No, I mean, Pastafarianism is a satire religion. You really want to promote a satire religion as a real religion? I mean, it kind of misses the point, doesn't it? That's just my opinion. Joshua Purvis. Hi, Steve. Hope you and your wife and Stuffy are doing well. Thank you very much, Joshua. We are all three doing very well. My question is this. Since you're going to do the Rocky movies, which ones are your favorites? Mine are 3 and 4. I enjoy your videos very much. And for Halloween, what are you going to review? Thanks. Yeah, I think the best Rocky movie is the first one, but my favorite is Rocky 3. And the reason for that is 2 words long, Clubber Lang. And for Halloween, I haven't decided 100% yet, but I think I'm going to do the RKO horror movies produced by Val Lewton. Not all of them, obviously, but I think I'm going to do 5 of those. Christy Winters, if you could only use one condiment on your food for the rest of your life, which would you choose? Mayonnaise. And I think that tells you a lot about me. I think you can infer a whole lot about me by my decision to choose mayonnaise as the only condiment I would ever use if I was forced into that choice. Harry Ray, lightning round question. With the continuing growth of the Let Me Listen podcast empire, how long until the plug takes up the entire video? I actually did the math on this one too, Harry, and by my calculations, which could be wrong, the Let Me Listen plug will take up the entire video starting next week. I could be wrong, but that's what the math says, so I'm not a math whiz. if someone else wants to run the numbers for me, I'd like to hear what maybe someone else would have to say. But yeah, that's my conclusion. And that's it for the lightning round. That's it for the questions. It's time for the shout out of the week. And the shout out this week goes to an awesome YouTube channel that I just discovered this week. And I was shocked to see how few subscribers it has, because it is so brilliant, and the person behind it, the star of the channel, is someone who's fairly well known on the internet, and again is just brilliant. So the shout out this week goes to seriously.tv. This is a YouTube channel that features the great Dylan Marin, who is one of the stars of the podcast Welcome to Night Vale, and he's also the person behind the video series Every Word Spoken, which is a video series that edits popular films down only to the dialogue spoken on screen by characters who are people of color. It's brilliant. It's a wonderful series that highlights the lack of diversity in Hollywood films. So that's the level of talent you're dealing with Seriously.tv, and it has some really, really hilarious videos on it. There's a series of the saga of the bathroom bill as told by Jane Austen, which is really funny. And there's also a series that Dylan does that is a parody of unboxing videos where he unboxes abstract concepts. And the last one of those that he put up just this past week was called Unboxing Internet Harassment. It is so funny. I cannot recommend this channel to you highly enough, or the work of Dylan Marin just in general. He is a great talent, so funny, such a great performer, and that's the recommendation. That's the shout out. Seriously.tv right here on YouTube. Check it out. I don't think you'll be sorry. I also want to recommend, as always, and according to my calculations, I will be spending the entire video next week recommending to you the Lemme Listen podcast. This is a series of podcasts produced by my very good friend Jason Harding, aka Jason with a D, here on YouTube. He runs the Opinionville YouTube channel, which is awesome, which you should all check out. The Lemme Listen podcasts are a series of podcasts, including the original Lemme Finish, co-hosted by Jason and Finite Atticus, American Monsters and How to Destroy Them, the awesome improv comedy podcast, Cinema Shack, which is co-hosted by Mike and Alex, which is a great movie review podcast, Cinetific, the newest Lemme Listen podcast, which is co-hosted by Professor Jason and Professor Aron, where they look at the scientific validity of popular films, and my favorite, Late Seating, the movie review podcast co-hosted by Jason and me, where we look at classic films that have a reputation of being great or terrible, and we decide after a fresh review and a fresh watch and going through the plot and summarizing it and making fun of it, whether or not it deserves the reputation that it has, whether it has a reputation for being an all-time great or one of the all-time worst bombs ever. And today, this very day that you are watching this video, if you are watching it on the day that it is uploaded, and actually for every day ever after, you can hear the newest episode of Late Seating, where Jason and I review the classic 1970s police, cop, crime, film noir, blaxploitation drama, Shaft, starring Richard Roundtree, one of the most influential and popular films of the 1970s, that fantastic decade for American film. Shaft is the subject of our new episode of Late Seating. You can listen to it and all the past episodes of Late Seating and all the episodes of all of the awesome Lemme Listen podcasts by going to LemmeListenPodcasts.com. If you do, I don't think you'll be sorry, but don't hold me to that, because I can't be sure of the taste of every person watching this. So I completely reject any responsibility, but I'm saying probably you're going to really dig it. Anyway, that's it for me, everybody. I am out of here for another week. Before I go, a reminder to please leave a comment on this video asking me your question for next time. Ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too serious. Nothing is too silly. I will answer as many of your questions as I possibly can in the next video. So until next time, take care, everybody. Oh, you knew this part was coming. One more thing before I go. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. And also, please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron of this channel. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.